Thank you, Thomas. All right, we got one more person with their hand raised. Ponder East. Come on over, Ponder. Ponder East, you with
Hey,
us?
can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. How are you doing? Thanks for
Hi,
joining us.
Ponder.
Good. Hey guys, thanks for taking it. Yeah, real quick. How do you guys imagine the Great Release will affect education broadly and more specifically like K through 12 in the United States over the next 12 months and over the next 2 to 10 years? And I'm asking as a musician and high school teacher.
I think in the near term, it's going to shake up well, for obvious reasons, it's going to shake up the sense of both what's required and what's possible in the mind of the parents in particular, and probably also the mind of the teachers, because they may not have wanted to be in a spot where they're teaching remotely online, but now they're going to have to. And so I think that just by virtue of that intersection between the parents understanding what the capabilities and limitations of online learning are, and the teachers having some experience with it, maybe, just, compulsory or forced upon them, that will probably shift some conversations on what is possible. I think those are the short-term effects. The longer-term effects, I think we're going to, well, let me say the next 10 years, I think this is going to go hand in hand with the economic progressivism, which I think we are officially in. As of 4 weeks ago, we are now the most economically progressive we will be in a generation. There's going to be printing presses running. There's going to be as much money being spread out as possible. We're going to, never hear a big government critique again, at least for, many years. And that's probably going to represent a sea change in terms of the way that education is being funded, just by virtue of the fact that everybody's getting money. So education will get a bunch of money too, because it's going to be a necessity. So we may see a phase shift there in terms of the well, let's call it the generation long fight we've been into so far, where the government has been stripping down support for public universities or public school systems or what have you. Not to say there aren't hard days ahead. Now, I think that the real, I guess, answer or the exciting answer, I think, and again, I get into this in part 3 of the Great Release as well, is I think we end up moving towards a deliberately developmental civilization. I mean, borrowing from Bob Keegan, where he talks about a deliberately developmental organization, I think what we need is a deliberately developmental civilization. And I'm not saying that I necessarily think that's evenly distributed across every country or every geography, but I think that particularly in the countries that are already have a degree of wealth, already fairly advanced economically, I think the conversations begin to change about how do we train our young people for the world that they're going to inhabit. And that's a whole nother set of skills that are meta skills on top of your classic curriculum. I did it. This was actually the topic of my to some degree, the topic of my 2012 TED talk about what do we need to be doing as adults and raising our kids to prepare them for the transformation age. We're going to need higher empathy, for example. We're going to need higher mindfulness. We're going to need higher discernment. Like, these are trainable skills. We're going to need innovators. We're going to need people who can balance out the agency of the individual and the pioneering spirit of the individual with a deep sense of community, and who know how to build psychological safety within that community so that they can lead. Like, these are knowable and definable skills. And there are certainly some school systems that I've seen around the world that are on this. It goes beyond just growth mindsets or beyond just project-based learning or maker shops and that kind of thing, where they're really beginning to think almost in a teal way about, like, okay, how do we create full spectrum adults who are really prepared to lead the way that they need to in the 21st century. It's certainly how we've been raising our children. I mean, to the best of our ability. And we homeschool. So it's, we are the teachers. And so this is near and dear to our heart. And I've said for a long time, you have the hardest job in the world. I mean, you and nurses, right? Public teachers and nurses have the hardest jobs in the world, hands down, in my view. I mean, every social dilemma that we could talk about over the last many years comes into your door every day, or gets carried in the door every day, and unlimited resources and a certain kind of system constrained thing, you're expected to solve for it. And then, oh, by the way, test for it, in this ludicrous way. It's so asinine as to defy imagination. Like only a society as rich as we are could be as dumb as we are to create that as the system.
Right.
But I think all of that's got to change. It's all gonna break under its own contradictions, because it's gonna have to.
Well, I appreciate you saying all that. I especially like what you said about the deliberately developmental thing and Bob Keegan's work and how important that is. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And, just to double click on what Rob's saying, we sort of took a moment in the beginning of the show to pay tribute to all the first responders out there, particularly in healthcare, but also you guys, man, y'all have been scrambling behind the scenes, way out of your comfort zones, in order to support and provide for our children. And I just want to say, thank you, and thank all the teachers out there. This is, it's extraordinary to see what you guys are doing, and to see the resilience that you're demonstrating, and just the dedication that you have to our kids. And if anything else, we have a whole bunch of like 70-year-old school teachers learning things like Zoom and Skype for the first time, and that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, been there yesterday.
That's great.
So, yeah, thank you, Ponder.